Yes, thanks for, oh, we can, I think get that conversation done. Thank you. Let me just give you that for now. We're trying. Fingers still crossed it all worked out. Okay. Hi, everyone. Do I need to use this mic for the Zoom? Okay. All right. Usually I'm a walker or rounder, so hopefully y'all can see me over this podium. No, I'm not the tallest. My name is Jill Malusky. I lead news for the U.S. National Science Foundation's National Radio Astronomy Observatory and the Green Bank Observatory. And today we're going to be talking about Wi-Fi in the quiet zone. So how many of you have read the news that has come out over the past week or so, the press release that we put out? Okay, a few folks. And that's what we'll be talking about today, how we came to allow this and why, and technically what it will mean for our science and how folks in the community can learn how to set up their Wi-Fi routers at home correctly. Okay, so to start off, we're going to talk about what on earth is the observatory. We're going to give everybody some context because even though the observatory has been here for decades, people may not understand what we do or why we're here. So the National Radio Astronomy Observatory was established here in Green Bank, Pocahontas County, West Virginia in 1956. And believe it or not, it was the first national observatory of its kind. Radio astronomy was a newer area of science, and the US was trying to play catch up with some other countries that had been doing that sort of science and that sort of research for a while. And so they did a lot of research to try and find the best location to set up a facility like this. So why on earth would you go out to an isolated valley in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains and build a big scientific facility? Anybody have any ideas why one might do that? Yeah? Oh, that's a great, yes, thank you. That's such a thoughtful answer. You have a great vantage point to view the sky, view cosmological objects like the Milky Way. That's definitely one of them, one of the reasons why the sky coverage that we would have here for our telescopes. Another reason was because this location was so remote and isolated and rural. And they didn't think that a big city would pop up here one day, because the way that this science is done is we use very, very sensitive instruments and telescopes to do our astronomy, to look out there in outer space. And by building the observatory here in this valley surrounded by tall mountains, those mountains were going to provide some natural protection from interference that could impact the telescopes that we were going to build here. And believe it or not, even for some folks who have lived here all their lives, who may not really know that much about the observatory, the Green Bank Observatory, the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, is world famous. It's known for its science, it's known for its telescopes, it's used by scientists and astronomers all across the US and also all around the world. So again, what do we do? What does this mean? What is this science? What is this research? And why on earth do we even bother to do it? And here on this slide, we can see a picture of our largest telescope here on campus, the Green Bank Telescope. So in a nutshell, we look for things in space and we make the things that we need to do this. So what does that actually mean? Well, we physically design and fabricate and produce the instruments that we use, the different components of those instruments, and then we train and inspire the next generation of machinists, engineers, computer programmers, mechanics to do that work. So those are all things that happen right here on our observatory campus. So how does the Green Bank Telescope actually function? We know it's big. We know we can fit a couple of football fields into the 100-meter dish. It's taller than the Statue of Liberty. Why do we have one of the largest human-made structures right here? So this large telescope actually catches and collects very, very faint and distant radio waves from objects that we're looking at in outer space. And as I mentioned, these are very, very faint. They're traveling very, very far. And there's a lot of potential for these wavelengths to be interfered with. And a lot of things that we use today can actually cause interference and prevent the astronomers and the scientists from being able to do their work, from being able, for the telescope being able to do its work. So in order to protect this work, back when the observatory was created, At the federal and national level and the state level, 2 quiet zones were created. And again, a lot of people hear about a quiet zone. They may not realize that there are actually 2 quiet zones that exist to protect the research and the instruments that we have here on campus. So the biggest quiet zone, the National Radio Quiet Zone, is 13,000 square miles. It covers a lot of West Virginia, even a teensy bit of Maryland. And hundreds of thousands of people live in this larger quiet zone and don't even realize it because their everyday lives aren't necessarily impacted by what happens there. At that large level, the only ones who are really impacted are companies that want to build cell phone towers or install ground-based transmitters that might accidentally point the signals that they're creating towards our instruments. So we have engineers that go out and do research in that larger area when someone wants to build a cell phone tower or wants to build a ground-based transmitter that could end up spreading frequencies. And they work with them to make sure that that transmitter, that tower, is not going to point those frequencies back over here to Green Bank and to our telescopes. Now, the area that those of you sitting in the room might be more interested in is what is called the West Virginia Radio Astronomy Zone. So that's actually a 10-mile radius that exists here around the observatory. And some of you might live, how many people in here live within this area? Yep, just about everybody in the room. So this is where we've made our change. This is where we have now decided to allow folks. Oh, okay, sorry. This is where we have now decided to allow folks to have Wi-Fi and to use it under very specific circumstances. So we're going to talk about exactly what that means. So why Wi-Fi? Why now? And how did we come to decide that Wi-Fi would be okay operating at 2.4 gigahertz? Well, the main reason why is we want to support education. As I'm sure everyone in the room is aware, we have the Green Bank Elementary and Middle School next door to us. And they are the only school within the Pocahontas County public school system that does not have Wi-Fi. And that has been a challenge for the educators, for the parents, for the students, because they have not been able to follow the same practices, use the same resources and tools that the other schools have. Another reason why we wanted to change this was so that we could enforce these regulations more fairly. For a couple of decades now, there have already been individuals in the community that have been using Wi-Fi at a variety of different frequencies. And we've been aware of this, but we haven't really been able to do much to stop them from doing that. And those folks who were following the rules and were not using Wi-Fi were essentially punished. They didn't have access for following the rules. And we also wanted to be a good neighbor. If we went out and did this research, if we decided that 2.4 gigahertz was going to be an okay frequency for folks to use Wi-Fi at, and we were going to extend that to the school, it wouldn't really be fair to not let other community members use it as well. So does this mean there's no impact to our science at 2.4 gigahertz? No. In this little illustration here, which is a variation of the one that we saw earlier, we can see that we're still trying to observe something in space. Now we can see the Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz coming from the houses. Did we lose all of the information and data? No, we can still see that some of it is coming through. Is it impacted by 2.4 gigahertz frequencies? Yes. This problem has been around for a couple of decades, as I mentioned. The scientists who are looking at objects in space that emit at these frequencies have already had to learn to try and work around this. When we were trying to decide what the best way forward would be, we saw that since this frequency already had a lot of interference, that we probably wouldn't have too much more of a worse impact by allowing folks to use Wi-Fi. This is the most technical slide we're going to see. This is actually what data looks like when it's coming in. And what we highlighted here is what the interference looks like at 2.4 gigahertz. We've had this for years. It's not going to go away. So this is why we chose to allow Wi-Fi at this frequency, because it is what it is. The quiet zone is not going away. We're adapting to the 21st century. So we're still going to have the National Radio Quiet Zone at 13,000 square miles. We're still going to have the West Virginia Radio Astronomy Zone in the 10-mile radius. We're still going to ask folks not to emit at all the other frequencies that we observe at, except 2.4 gigahertz. That is where we're compromising, and that is where we're allowing folks to use Wi-Fi routers. So what we really hope is that the residents who live in this area, who may already have Wi-Fi routers set up, we hope that you will work together with us to help keep the other wavelengths clean. We have developed guidance for the most common routers that would be in use in our area, the ones that you can buy off the shelf from big box stores, the one that might have been given to you by your internet service providers. We have very clear, easy to follow instructions on how you can go in and make those adjustments so that you can be sure that your Wi-Fi is operating at 2.4 gigahertz. These are the guidelines that the school has, and this is what they will be following when they set up Wi-Fi for their students for this coming school year. So we're hoping by making this compromise, making this concession for the school and our community, that we can do our best to keep the other wavelengths clean. So now we're going to go through a little true or false section. Since I have this opportunity with a lot of local residents and folks in the room, I wanted to ask some questions. I wanted to share some information with you and have you help determine if these are true or false. So true or false, the observatory is closing. Great, thanks. Yes, false. Yes, we actually just had a big old staff meeting today with all our colleagues from all our other facilities. Just so you know, the Green Bank Observatory is not the only observatory that exists in this country. We have other facilities in Virginia, West Virginia, other telescopes scattered across the country at over a dozen different sites. So this is not the only one. And no, we're not closing. That is false. And by the way, these are all based on real rumors or conversations that I have been told directly or that I've heard from other colleagues. True or false? False. The telescopes only work at night. False. That's correct. They're radio telescopes. They can see those radio wavelengths any time of day. I actually seen in print, in writing, in the newspaper, opinions from our other residents and neighbors where they thought that the telescopes only operated at night. True or false? The observatory can slow down or turn off your internet or Wi-Fi at home. That's also false. But I have actually had phone calls from folks who think that we can control it ourselves. That's not true. Your internet service provider is the only one who can impact your access. So nothing that the observatory does can interrupt, turn off, or slow down internet that you use at home or Wi-Fi. True or false? The observatory can beam signals at you or your home. Okay, that is false as well. I appreciate that there were some chuckles in the room, but I have had conversations with individuals. We have communications from folks, emails, or interactions on social media where people believe we have actually turned our telescopes towards them and transmitted signals. And that's absolutely false. That's not how our telescopes function. At the end, we'll take some questions. Yeah, thank you so much for asking. And true or false, the observatory is hiding aliens in its underground bunker. Oh, I wish. We don't have aliens or a bunker. It would be really cool if we did. So had to throw a little bit of humor in there, but all of the science that we're doing, all of the research, we're studying cosmological objects. We're looking for organic molecules in space. All of the things that we're looking for are very, very far away. And that's why we have such sensitive instruments. If only we had some cool things like that happening here. We'll work on it. Yeah. So, all of the information that we have about this change is available at greenbankobservatory.org for the folks who are tuning in online. You can find our press release, frequently asked questions, and the guidelines for changing your router. For those of you who are in person here tonight, we have printouts of these available at the front desk. You can pick any of these up and take them home with you. And as I said, my name is Jill. I manage news for our observatories. And we also have our director of the Green Bank Observatory, Anthony Remijan, here. And at this time, we will take questions. So if you have any individual questions, please raise your hand and we'll address them. Thank you. Yes. That's wonderful. Not being a school administrator or an educator, I can tell you that they have not had access to any of those devices before because this will be the first year that they can use Wi-Fi. And it is in elementary and middle school, and the teachers will be dictating how and when those devices are used. Now, I'm not a representative for the school board, but I can say that per school policy, as I was told by the principal next door, students are not permitted to use their personal devices during the school day. It will purely be used, they will purely be using devices that they are handed out by their teachers for the in-class curriculum. And if you do have something to share, please share it with us afterwards when we're in the hall so we can take other questions. Thank you. I can get closer. Is that impacting? Okay, I can get closer to the microphone. Yes, sir? The telescope does not emit frequencies of 2.4. We're observing objects in space that are emitting at frequencies of 2.4 and other frequencies, many other frequencies. And I can actually also have our director, Tony, talk more about that. He's also an astronomer and a scientist. So the telescope itself does not emit frequencies, it's observing them. Thanks, though. That was a great question. Yes, ma'am? Okay. So the question was for individuals who would not want Wi-Fi usage at the library, how they would address that. That's me summarizing. That's up to the library to determine if they want to use Wi-Fi. We've obviously given the okay to the community to do so. So that would be the library's decision. So that's a great question for the library, Pocahontas County Public Libraries and their director, Hallie Harold. Okay. So that was a question about individuals who are close to the observatory who may have smart meters for their electric utility. And Mom Power is the utility provider. So I can't answer that question about whether or not Mom Power has installed those in the zone. I'm unfamiliar with that myself, not working with Mom Power utility. So that's a good question for them. Thank you. Yes. So it would be, as a household, the individual's responsibility to make that change following the guidance. Yes, yeah. So we have guidance here for, I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 different routers that are commonly used in this area. If you were to purchase one yourself, or if you were to be provided one by, we essentially have 2 local internet service providers here in this immediate area. So all of those instructions are right here for that. That's a really good question. So we're not going to contact the internet service provider and ask them to do that for us. How many people have had to or tried to work with Frontier before when you've had issues with if individuals in the room have internet connections at home? And has it been challenging? So believe it or not, thanks. Yeah. So believe it or not, even as an organization, even as a business, we face those same challenges of communication with that large internet service provider. And I think I also read recently in the Pocahontas Times that that large internet service provider was bought out by another large internet service provider. So perhaps service will get better down the line. So thank you. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we just had a question about whether or not hardwired access was mentioned in this guidance. And yes, it's actually mentioned. I'll be happy to read that out loud to you here. And this was put together. We have a division of the observatory that's called Spectrum. And spectrum refers to the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So besides taking care of issues in the quiet zone, they're also working on issues with our other telescopes in other locations to try to protect them as well. So they have a lot on their plate. But the guidance that those engineers created says, where's my troubleshooting section? It says, I should know I formatted this where I have that section, that the best and fastest and most reliable way to access the internet is still to use hardwire. So that is encouraged. And actually, in 2011, when we first started to notice a lot more issues with interference caused by Wi-Fi routers, at that time, individuals who were in our interference protection group took the time to provide guidance and give out cables, I believe it was, to encourage folks to switch from Wi-Fi routers to Ethernet. So that was something that was done in 2011, which we all know is how many years now? 15 or so. Was it really? Oh my gosh. Okay. We're all aging, aren't we? So in the 15 years since then, I don't know if anybody would have thought that devices that we transmit, devices that operate at these frequencies would become as prolific as they are today. So that was one of the reasons why we moved to this choice, to try to push all this interference into a specific frequency. Yes? Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was, who could one contact at the local schools? So the Pocahontas County Public School System, I have linked their website, the Pocahontas County Public School Board. So when you go to our website from home, or if you pick up the frequently asked questions that's out front there, you'll just find the web address for the school district. And so I would recommend going through the school board there. You know, you probably talk to an administrator who may take your information themselves and then pass it on to the school board and the leadership, but that's what I would do. Mm-hmm. Correct. The school has come to us several times over how many years now, Tony? At least 10. The school has come to the observatory many times over the last 10 years. And I believe it was about 3 years ago, we investigated other ways to try to give the school Wi-Fi, and they weren't feasible. The technology was too expensive. It wasn't effective. It wouldn't be possible to install it throughout the school district. And so that's what led us over the past 2 years, essentially, to go this route and permit Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz. Three years ago, so I will ask Tony to comment or interrupt me if I'm wrong. They were trying to use a system that was light-based. Is there an acronym for that? Li-Fi? Yeah. Yeah. And so it's actually, hey, by the way, I do communications. I have no physics or astronomy classes that I've taken. So I'm the interpreter. So this is Jill interpreting it. So I will happily, accept anyone else from our staff who wants to chime in. But Li-Fi was expensive. It's light-based. You have to install special equipment, and it only operates in a very specific area. It seemed like a great solution and a great option, but it was not viable for a public school in West Virginia to implement. Yeah. Yes, sir. And as I replied earlier, that is Pocahontas County's public schools policy. Personal devices are not permitted to be used during the school day. I did not hand out the school's guidelines, but I did list the school's website where you can access their policy. Yes, any of us who have our personal devices, even grown-ups at work, yes, one can operate better when one doesn't have their tablet or their phone there to tempt them with games or scrolling on social media. Yes, I hear that. Yeah. Mhm. 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 I hear what you're saying, and I take no offense at that. Thank you for sharing it in such a passionate and concerned way. Mhm. Well, one thing that you said that I really appreciate and I want to reference is you said that if you had children, you would not choose to put them in a school where they have access to Wi-Fi. What we heard from the school that's next door to us, from the administrators and the parents, was that they do want Wi-Fi. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that opinion. I do hear you, and I do, yeah. Mhm. 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 I hear again the concern, and all I can say is that it wasn't the observatory's decision to impose ethics upon this. And there is a variety of research out there, both sides. And this decision, we decided to work with the reality of what we were seeing in the 2.4 gigahertz band, and we could see that a lot of individuals in this quiet area were making the choice to use it, and rather than continue to punish individuals who were choosing not to, who wanted it, like the school, we chose to open that up. So the ethics of the health and the science, or the health that you're referencing and that scientific research, that wasn't a part of this factor. We were making a decision based on the community need, and your research, your concern, that would be best to pass on to the school directly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, goodwill, do the right thing, follow the green light, stop at the stop sign, follow the rules and do what you're supposed to do. That's where we are right now with enforcement. And Tony could probably speak to that more in more detail if you'd like, but that's essentially where we are. Yeah. Well, did you have a question as well? Yeah. Hmm. That's a great question. Um, I am not familiar with, I mean, I suppose some urban centers have sort of Wi-Fi like that, but I'm not aware of how that something like that could be implemented here. As far as we're operating right now, it would be a household by household basis, or an individual residence or business, case by case situation. So I'm not familiar with any plans to install Wi-Fi en masse by any internet service providers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're unfamiliar with that happening in other rural areas. I don't know if I can answer that question. Would it be okay with the observatory if, I guess it would be the village of Green Bank or Arborvale, made a choice? as to how they govern themselves and chose to install Wi-Fi. If it was operating at 2.4 gigahertz and the entity, the community, had a decision-making body to do so, it would be permitted. That's Jill. I'm saying that. So yeah. Yeah. So I would not see that being installed here at the observatory campus. Yeah. You want to go ahead, Tony? It's a very interesting theory.
So we do have there is an independent study taking place about the EMS services and emergency services in and around the observatory. Yes. Sure. Sorry. There is a separate study that is taking place about EMS services and how to get emergency services in and around the various counties in West Virginia here, Pocahontas County and Pendleton County. That is independent of this. They are going to make their own decisions and decide on their own technology based on their study that they're doing. And so this should have no influence on that study at all. And we've been in communication with them the entire time on what they're working on, what we're working on, and there is no conflict. And they wouldn't actually see what we're doing as a viable way in order to get emergency services and communication throughout the county in that kind of way. They're investigating in a completely different way on how to do it. And we're encouraging that study, and we're offering some support when we're asked. No, that I don't have information on.
Yeah, so the telecommunications is separate from this Wi-Fi conversation. Thank you, Tony, for referencing that other research that's being done. The telecommunications for emergency services is a separate issue that's being researched and looked at in a different way. We don't have all that research back yet to comment on it. And yeah, so that should clarify your idea there about how Wi-Fi could be used for that, but that's not something that's been considered. Yes, we do use walkie-talkies at specific frequencies that do not interfere with our observations for communications across our 3,000-acre campus. Yes, that is true. Yes, well, let's talk more about that outside. Yeah, does anybody have any other direct questions? Yeah, hey. So the question was, are we aware of any real quiet zones or silent areas? I am not Jill personally is not aware, and I've looked into this a little bit because I talk with a lot of individuals who want to move to this area, and I have not advised that because this has never been a completely silent zone. While it's been quieter than other places, both because of its rural and remote location and because of the scientific research that we do and the quiet zones that were created to protect that research, I'm not aware of any zone in the world where, for health reasons, there's been restrictions put in place to keep them free and quiet. Yeah. Mhm. 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 Any other questions about the school specifically in the Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi in the West Virginia radio zone? Yes. How much money would it take to make the hardwired Ethernet work at the school for them to want it? I don't know that figure myself. Mm-hmm. There's approximately 200 students, and just under 200 students for this coming school year. And when I asked the principal, I'm trying to remember if there were between like 30 and 50 staff. I don't want to misspeak. Again, I'm not a representative for the school, but when I was talking with the principal, because we're going to be doing outreach with the students and with the teachers to talk about this, those were the estimates that I had written down. Well, they are elementary through middle school, so Jill is going to guess maybe 7 years old. I'm not sure if they have preschool or not. Not sure about that. Okay, if there's preschool, then what preschool would be 3 years old? Bob, I just want to interrupt you there and just say that again, the school district itself came to us asking for this solution. So the school district and the school administrators had wanted to bring this to their students. And if you want to share that health information and research, I would encourage you to do that directly with them. And perhaps they'd already considered it, perhaps they hadn't, but I would carry that directly to them because it's not the observatory's place to make that ethics decision for the school based on that. We have not exchanged any money with the school. We're giving them guidance right now just on how to install it themselves. Yep. Okay, we'll just take a few more questions. And here at the observatory, we also have hardwire internet. That's how we operate everything. So we'll just take one more question and then we'll adjourn to the hallway and then make our way out for the evening. The people on Zoom? Oh yeah, do we have any questions come in, Angela? No questions have come in on Zoom or online. So thank you all for being so considerate and respectful and being wonderful listeners as we share this information. And thank you also for taking the time to come out and wanting to communicate this and learn more. And like I said, we have the press release, the router guidance, the frequently asked questions, and a few posters as well, just about the 2.4 gigahertz out front that you can pick up on your way out. Thank you all for coming tonight. Sorry.